taking action, getting results. This is WHNT News 19's special coverage, Reflections After the Storm. Everything you've worked for your whole life gone in seconds.
It's almost like, where do you start?
You know, and it makes you just want to cry, you know what I'm saying? Because you got to start all over.
Loved ones lost.
He's a good neighbor, good friend.
I'm hoping she's still alive, and I'm hearing she's not.
Entire towns destroyed.
Wow. 297, if you will, relay to my dispatch, that please.
Everywhere you look, heartbreak.
And I never imagined having it myself, but now I know what it's like. This will always be with me.
In the midst of tragedy, communities pull together.
Strangers and friends and family.
It's all local volunteers.
Symbols of strength found all over the area.
The sun will rise tomorrow because we have a hope.
Hope here in the Tennessee Valley was in no short supply in the days and weeks after April 27th, 2011. For many, it was all they were left with. But a deadly storm of historic proportions also presented immense and frightening challenges in some of Alabama's darkest days, a test for us all. In the next 30 minutes, we candidly share with you the story of what it took to tell your story before, during, and after the storm.
We've gotten a number of emails and phone calls from viewers asking, where do you go in the event of a tornado warning if you live in a mobile home?
Before that day came, all the severe weather parameters were there. Everything was off the charts. It was setting itself up to be a big day.
You want to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible.
The night before the storms, Ben Smith and I did a 30-minute web chat, answering people's questions who wrote in.
Number one, a closet. Number two, a bathroom.
This is what could be coming our way. Storm chasers catching this tornado on the ground in Kaufman County, Texas, late today. Yeah, we thought we might have a tornado here, a tornado there. And we begin tonight with our severe weather threat. Possibly our best chance this year so far for severe weather tonight and tomorrow. I don't think anybody was prepared for what was coming on April 27th. It was a day from hell.
Possibly a tornado near Phil Campbell. I want to try to look at this, see if I can find this circulation.
Well, I was the first one on duty that morning to start in the pre-dawn hours. And my producer sat down and he said, Christina, what do you really think is going to happen today? And I looked at him, I said, Ty, people are going to die today. And you can't say that kind of thing on the air, but you know it.
I mean, it started early in the morning. We had storms in the shoals, and then as the day went on, it got worse. And it wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop.
You know, it was almost a time of innocence compared to what ensued.
Yeah, it started like 6 o'clock that morning when my weather radio went off. Got up, heard that there was a tornado warning from Marshall County, and then all of a sudden it just hit. And I ended up getting a little hallway there in my house, and the garage door slamming in. I thought, you know, this is it.
You know, we had our crews out in the field, and we were covering at first typical storm damage type reports.
You don't need to get out and drive in the middle of what Shane is looking at right there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a severe, developing situation. As Alan and Christina and Ben have articulated, it's moving quickly.
The newsroom callers is on the ground right in front of you. I've been doing this 30 years, and I'm not crazy enough to drive into a storm. So we stopped. The storm passed. We're going to Arab. But on the way to Arab, the reporter and I are from the same neighborhood, and we hear Harvest is being hit. This is our community. Beth Jett is on the phone talking to her husband. Put the baby in the closet. Get in the closet. I'm calling my neighbors. Is my house still standing?
I knew I had to go. I had to start chasing. That's what I do. I chase storms. So that storm that I chased that day changed my life.
Well, that day I didn't have to be into work until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I had spent that morning listening to the meteorologist's warnings and was actually in the shower when the power went out.
I felt helpless. I knew I could give those warnings all day long, and people didn't have electricity. They may not have a battery in their radio. I felt helpless.
I ended up having to spend another part of that afternoon in the bathtub again, having no clue that when I came out, I would be reporting storm damage from my own neighborhood.
You go down this road one way and the road's blocked by a tree. You go down this way, the road's blocked by a tree. So I called the station. I'm like, I can't go anywhere.
Well, for a couple of hours, there was no way to get in or out. There were trees literally blocking every entrance and exit to the neighborhood. And finally, one of my coworkers was able to make it in, brought his camera, and we shot a Look Live report right there. We're here off of Moores Mill Road, and all of the streets that connect off of Robinson Lane, this type of debris is typical everywhere. You've got limbs all over the streets. Take a look at this house behind me back here where a tree is toppled on it. You see how the roadways are completely blocked.
We kept getting reports of tornado touchdowns, of extensive damage, people missing, people dead, people injured, and it just wouldn't stop.
After the first warning, I was able to reach my family over the cell phone and know that they were okay. The second warning, I couldn't reach anyone. That feeling of panic, oh my God, my aunt may be dead, that was a feeling I'll never forget. It was horrible. Sorry. I knew that would happen.
Franklin County and Lawrence and Colbert also reporting a tornado.
I mean, it was trying to keep up with not only tornado warnings, but large tornadoes. Large tornadoes that are on the ground, and you have 2 and 3 at a time. I mean, what are you supposed to do? It almost got to a point where, okay, if you can hear my voice, you need to take cover.
We also have a report of a gas station that was leveled in Harvest, Highway 53 and Jeff Road. Piggly Wiggly grocery store also damaged with people trapped.
I was on the anchoring desk, and I remember Alan Raymond at one point. Everything changed. I heard this sound in his voice, and he was just saying, it's coming towards you. You got 5 minutes.
Athens 6 minutes, 17 minutes to Harvest, 20 minutes to Tony.
Get in your safe place.
You should be in your tornado shelter right now.
You don't have time, you know, and the sound of his voice just gave me chills up and down my spine. And I knew we were in trouble. Right then and there, I knew we were in trouble.
Mobile homes are a no-go. Get you guys in a tornado shelter immediately.
The tornado warnings just kept coming and coming, and I just remember thinking, like, I don't want to die this way in a bathtub alone.
Our whole trailer court's gone. There's no more trailers standing anywhere. There's nothing left.
We get the ARAP, it was chaos.
Amidst all of the emergency vehicles coming in and out of the community of Ruth came one lone hearse, a sight that instantly brought tears.
Beth saw our hearse come, and it hit her. I said, hey, we got to pull ourselves together. We got to work. Seeing the hearse, that's bad. Worrying about your neighborhood, not knowing if you have a home to go back to, that's even worse.
My goodness.
The video is the kind of video that you kind of think like, yeah, that happens to somebody, some other community, somewhere else. Well, no, this time it was our community and it was our people.
And you know the pain that's coming, and it's there's a helpless aspect to it.
And I looked to my left and I saw these 2 paramedics from Hemsey. They were trying to lift a stretcher over a fallen tree, and this tree had to be 6 foot around, and you could just tell that they were struggling. So I put my orange vest on, I grabbed my flashlight, I locked my truck up, and I went to help them. And that's where bad things happened back there. A lot of people died, and while we were back there, we found a little girl. She was 13, and she didn't make it.
Found a little girl who had died. You know, you aren't ever the same after something like that happens. You don't fully recover. You can't get that out of your mind.
That's why I don't care to ever chase another tornado. I've done my job. I don't want to see it.
Ben, you might want to mention that we have lost power here in our studio in downtown.
We've lost control of everything. I can't.
But what we're doing is we're going to continue to broadcast because we think some of you may actually be able to hear us. Alan is holding up what is radar there on his iPad right there. And Alan, go ahead and tell us what we're looking at this point.
Yeah. Okay, I know this is difficult to see, but this is what we've got to work with right now, and we want to make sure that you guys are getting the best information possible.
We heard from people through email, so we knew that people were watching, whether they could see our TV signal here in North Alabama or not. We knew that there were people watching us across the nation, people across the Southeast, there's a guy who wrote in from Brazil. You know, there were people traveling for work, people who had relatives here. They were watching our coverage online, knowing that, okay, even though my sister who lives in Grant can't see the signal, she's still under the gun.
Initially, we had almost 600,000 people without power, indefinitely. You know, what do you do?
The newsroom really turned into a war room mode as soon as this crisis hit. As soon as we knew this is going to be serious, it was all hands on deck. I mean, people were working on no sleep, shoveling whatever they could find in from the vending machines. But it was a sense of urgency. People didn't even think twice about that because it was so critical and so important to get the information out that just seemed normal because we have to stay on the job and make this work.
Nobody said, you know, anything about their work hours or, you know, their assignments. It was just like, what can I do? How can I help? What is it that I can do to, you know, get the news on the air? And that wasn't just people who worked in the news department, that was people throughout the building.
We always look to a viewfinder. We're always looking on the outside of people's lives. But that day, there was no outside. We were all on the inside. We were all in there helping one another, you know, just try to survive.
If you get emotional about it, you can't do your job. You have to get that information out there as quickly as you can. And if you're thinking about it, then you can't do your job.
I got entirely too emotional with all the amount of people, and it was like entire families, entire communities were wiped out. This was communities where everyone knew each other. Imagine being a 13-year-old and losing 25 people that you know in one day. It was just utterly devastating.
There was a pretty significant tornado that caused a lot of damage at University Village Apartments there in Tuscaloosa.
When it became real to me, there was a point right after the tornado went through Tuscaloosa, and I tell people I'm the voice in the anchor's ears. It's from the information I give them and it comes out their mouth. And I didn't even think of how I was saying it to Jerry when we found out students had died in Tuscaloosa.
And we don't have this confirmed, but we did get some information that there may be as many as a dozen deaths in Tuscaloosa.
And I push the button to talk into his IFB that goes in his ear, and I say, Jerry, we know students died, don't know how many, we know students died. And I said it just like that. And right after I said it, I go, oh my God, students died. Because you're not feeling it yet. And I felt it when I saw Jerry's reaction.
We do know that the university system alerted all of the students through text message and cell phones and told them to seek shelter.
You know, not only was I worried about the people here in the Tennessee Valley, but I knew that afternoon that there was a terrible storm that had hit Tuscaloosa. And I immediately knew that I had to try to get in touch with my daughter. That's the only time I ever left the desk.
Hopefully that made a difference in students seeking shelter.
The death toll stands at 131 people statewide.
It was so hard to see those images coming in, the suffering and the sense of loss.
It looks like it blew up. That's the best way I could put it.
At least 2 people are dead, dozens more injured, and it may only be the beginning. Our cameras captured the carnage while driving through the Harvest Shopping Center. Texaco, gone. The Shop and Save, obliterated. Same goes for Piggly Wiggly.
Phil Campbell Police Chief Merrill Potter says the numbers are staggering. At least 12 people are confirmed dead or still missing.
Most everybody knows one another here.
All the trees are down. We couldn't get out. We couldn't get anybody on the phone.
There was also no power in the area for quite some time. Cell phones were also not working, so it was difficult to relay information as far as where all the problems were happening and also how many fatalities we saw down in Coleman.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Parts, the official auto parts store of NASCAR.
Oh my God.
Better prices every day.
Holy crap.
There's 8 confirmed deaths right there. 7 of these deaths are new. So this is really terrible information. In fact, we just spoke with Coroner John David Jordan. 1 death in Bridgeport, a 12-year-old boy. I didn't really feel like a newscaster or a journalist at that point. I felt like I was just giving people information that nobody wanted to hear. It was such a harsh reality. And it was really hard to do. It was really hard to do.
Of course, it has been a long day for severe weather here in the Tennessee Valley. We still have crews out. We know that a lot of you have asked us, say, well, why haven't you gotten to my neighborhood yet? Well, it's simply because we're trying to get to as many places as we can, but part of the problem tonight is there's no power.
Well, at first, just trying to get to every place in our viewing area that had been affected, logistically, it was impossible.
There's no way to get there. A lot of these roads and communities have been shut down. There's also a curfew.
We may not have been in every home on a television set, but we were on the web. We were on a radio partner, WDRM 1021. People were listening.
Finally, I got home. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was no lights. And I sat down on my couch, but I just sat there, and it all just kind of sunk in, and I cried.
This massive and violent storm sent debris flying. It ripped houses right off their foundation and ultimately turned this town upside down.
It's very heartbreaking to see all these families that their homes are gone.
And man, when the sun came up, I looked around and I could not believe what I saw. It looked like a bomb had gone off.
92 tornado warnings were issued within a 24-hour period. I mean, think about that. If you do the math, that's almost 4 an hour. Tornado warnings.
We knew it was bad. And I got up the next morning and went to ARAB, and while I was there covering the 5 people in the Hallmark family that had been killed, our assistant news director, David Williams, called me and he says, the Associated Press is reporting that there are 30 people dead in DeKalb County. And I told him, like, that's got to be some kind of mistake.
During the storm, there was 1 confirmed death, a 14-year-old boy, and unfortunately that family lost another life this afternoon.
Nothing was left untouched by the fierce and fast-moving storm. Even the church's van was lifted and thrown nearly 100 yards.
I'm Stan Pylant. I'm the general manager with WHNT News 19. We're actually live on the air right now through Skype.
As I drove around in Limestone County in a neighborhood where houses were completely flattened, and I would talk to people and they would just be, hey, you know, I've got my family, that's all important to me, we'll rebuild, we'll go on.
You guys are doing an awesome job out here today.
Thank you so much. We're just trying to take care of our neighbors. We grow up here and we stay here.
You know, I knew that those people had just probably lost everything almost, but they still had their family, and that really touched me.
The governor says in addition to the 8 counties already acknowledged as emergency disaster areas, no one will be overlooked.
Well, it's very emotional. If we're going to lead, we can be sympathetic and love each other and care for each other, and we can be emotional, but we have to be in control. And the leaders have to be in control.
It was leveled. There's nothing left but just the concrete slab where this church used to stand. People are already gathering here, though. They're going to have a worship service.
And it's appropriate because Governor Bentley has declared today a day of prayer for the state of Alabama.
You know, I guess that's when I felt it emotionally, how bad it was.
You see, here's the thing, folks. God loved us, and He sent His Son. His Son suffered. His Son died. His Son was beaten for us. His Son suffered just like we did Wednesday.
Driving to Phil Campbell on that Sunday morning, I had no idea that I was going to see what I saw when I got there. I'm standing where the Phil Campbell Church of God used to stand, and I do a 360 and I see nothing but devastation as far as I can see.
He said, God, I can't handle this. God, I cannot handle this. with all the strength that is within me. God, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. I really can't.
Even when we were there that day, the Hempsey dogs from Huntsville were in the distance looking for somebody who was still missing. You know, you can't erase those images from your mind.
An EF5 tornado ripped through Rosie Road, bearing down on Glenn and Janice Riddle at home with their 3 grandchildren, ages 4, 6, and 9.
They got in the hall closet with the grandbabies, and they laid on top of the grandbabies to save their lives. That's the only reason they're here.
Philip Peden of Hartselle is Janice Riddle's son. He says his mother and stepfather are the ultimate heroes.
They give their lives for those babies.
There's a lot of sad memories and personal stories of that unfolded in the days after, of, you know, grandparents who who died, you know, holding on to their grandchildren and stuff. It was those stories were hard. People my age, I feel like I hit really close to home when it was like 20-year-olds and 17-year-olds, high school students.
This now vacant plot of land and the debris left behind belonged to the Hallmark family. Now, 5 hearses lined up side by side show the true impact of what happened all across Alabama last week.
It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it, and to know that they were all gone and they were huddled together when it happened, and you know, they didn't survive.
So often, it's unbelievable the scope of the devastation in our community. And, you know, Steve, you've lived your whole life here in the South. You've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, that's one of my...
It's okay.
Just listen to that story. I mean, I started crying on the set. This is unprofessional.
No, it's all right,
I'm
Steve.
sorry.
It's a really hard time for all of us.
But for whatever reason, that just really touched me, and the idea that that whole family was killed by that storm is just, you know, horrible.
The donations at the end of our 6 o'clock show hit over $200,000, and that is, you know, that's $1, $5, $10, or larger donations that have been coming in. People doing whatever they can to help those in need, our neighbors.
We preach taking action, getting results around here. It's kind of a mantra we live by. And, you know, when you do a telethon that raises $500,000 for storm relief, that's taking action, getting results to the nth degree.
Absolutely. The donations that we are collecting today are going to replace medication. They're going to support funeral costs. We are counseling and advocating for people. There's been a lot of emotional damage done here.
So many people, I think, got help because of what we did that day in particular.
We did a memorial piece where we had the name of every victim that we knew of up to that point who had died. And we had started putting pictures together with those names. And the first time I saw it, man, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Out of all the stories that we have seen, that has been the toughest one to watch, because those are some of our neighbors and friends that we lost. And you put a picture to some of those names, and we don't have photographs of everybody, but to put a picture and faces to those names that we lost. A lot of people hurting. A lot of people hurting.
Well, and that's the thing is, you know, we don't want to just report numbers. We don't want to just report statistics, because these are our friends, these are family members, and these are neighbors.
With their candles to participate in the candlelight vigil. There was an infant being held standing next to a woman who was in her 80s. I remember thinking, the older woman is a woman who survived and has seen a lot, and the world lays in front of this infant, but we're all here together to help everybody in between. Help everybody in between.
Even here in the studio, there are people, we are lighting candles in memory of those who are no longer with us.
Because my dad couldn't positively identify her. But I did. And I'm telling you, no parent should ever have to do that.
On a personal note, in 32 years here at WHNT, This is one of the toughest interviews I've ever done. The story hit close to home because I have a daughter at Alabama too. And when I couldn't get in touch with her that day, I was just praying that she'd listened to her dad and gotten somewhere safe.
That was without a doubt the toughest interview I've ever had to do, because I was hurting for him as a parent.
I think that's something that a lot of our viewers need to hear, is that yes, we report the story, but we feel it too. I mean, there's so much they don't see of when we hear about things, how we feel it. And, you know, I think that makes sometimes the story even harder to tell when we're dealing with the pain of the situation as well.
A lot of people need to change their life and get on the right track because they got spared. The next time we're not going to be spared because he gave us another chance, you know?
I mean, if you got friends, you better keep them.
Unforgettable. No one's ever gonna forget this.
So it came from the window, across that hall, and into that closet.
Yeah.
The resiliency of the people in Alabama, it's amazing that you can walk into somebody's, or what was somebody's home, sit there and stand amongst all this devastation. They're still smiling and they're saying thank you for coming out here and telling my story.
And within minutes, it was all over with. But it was something else.
I want you to take a look. We're being joined over here. I don't know whose dog that is, but she's sure happy to see somebody. Look at that.
She's lost.
She's lost, my goodness, but look at that.
You know, a lot of times there's so many things that happen that make us think that maybe humanity isn't what it ought to be, but when things get bad, it really is when people are at their best. And I think that was shown over and over again. And that's the thing that struck me, is the spirit of the people who were affected and the people giving from their hearts to help them.
Coming together as a neighborhood, as a workplace, as a city, as a country, we just had to mend together and make things work.
I think we were clear examples that neighbors were helping neighbors, and people got together and fed each other.
We're having biscuits and gravy and some fried potatoes this morning.
The realization and just the reaffirmation that there are people all around me that I can learn so much from.
I think it's really given me an appreciation, the people that I live around, an appreciation for the community that I live in, an appreciation for life.
I think we've got to continue looking out for one another. We've got to continue taking care of our neighbor, finding out what they need and doing something about it. You know, don't just sit there and say, well, this organization will take care of it or whatever. You know, we should be taking our neighbor's hand and saying, what can I do for you? And not just in the days that followed the tornado, but 6 months from now, a year from now, because it's going to be a long road to recovery.